Got it. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see everyone. I am Rabbi Deborah Lynn. I am co-chair with Horton the Who, the elephant in the room, Mirala Goldsmith of Jewish Earth Alliance. And thank you for coming tonight to our meeting. It's a pleasure to have you all. Blessings to you. And I want to say blessings to you all, brave chutzpah-dik activists. You are true heroes. Give yourself a big grateful cheer that we made thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of calls to get out the vote. And it worked. Hip, hip, hooray, everybody. Hallelujah.
Hooray.
Yeah, say hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Unmute yourself. We helped to elect dozens of climate action supporters in Congress and also down ticket as well. So we could be very, very proud of the work that we accomplished this fall, but this entire year. And we've had a lot of successes this year, and so gratifying to see so many of you participating in those successes. We have a slide here to give you some idea of where we've been and where we are headed. Ed, can you put that up for us? So let's see. So the Kigali Amendment that was to eliminate CFCs was ratified by the Senate this year at the very beginning of the year, I believe. And the Reclamation Fund appropriated $11.293 billion. I'm just still so amazed how everything is with a B. And of course, the recent passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, $369 billion. And I just noticed 3 and 6 is 9, and 9 and 9 is 18. It's a lucky number. 369 billion in climate solutions and environmental justice. Put us on the path to 40% emission reduction by 2030. Defeat of the dirty deal. That side deal that was happening under the radar, but we got word of it and got demonstrators to protest, and so that was defeated. And our ongoing efforts, last month's action alert was methane pollution. A new draft of regulations came out with improvements. And the comment period is beginning. And other priorities, 5-year oil and gas offshore leasing programs, healthy, our main agenda, healthy democracy, climate-friendly agriculture, and offshore leasing program. So this month, the current action alert is Recovering America's Wildlife Act. It's passed the House, but it still has to pass the Senate. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight and act on tonight. So Ed, if you could take that down and let me introduce, I want to introduce Elliot Rabin from the Bronx, who is a member of the Bronx Jews for Climate Action and a loyal attendee at these network meetings, our monthly Jewish Earth Alliance network meetings. He's the director of thought leadership at Prisma, the Center for Jewish Day Schools. I think that is the most amazing job title, Elliot, ever. A director of thought leadership.
Thank you. Don't tell anyone, but I came up with it myself.
Oh, good. There you go. And Elliot's the author of 2 books, Understanding the Hebrew Bible, A Reader's Guide, and The Biblical Hebrew, Portraits in Nobility and Fallibility. His specialties, he likes to say, are writing, editing, managing complex problems involving many people and organizations, and finding creative solutions. So please teach us, Elliot. Open this wonderful meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I begin, I want to give a plug to another book that I recently came across that I bought called Echo Bible. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it or have it. It came out just recently by Rabbi Yonatan Nerel, who's an environmental and climate activist in Israel. It's just an absolute treasure, a wealth of combining insights into the Torah with rabbinic commentary and scientific current science on climate. I'm reading it, going through the parsha by parsha, reading it and enjoying it tremendously. So I want to give that a plug. So in honor of the topic of today's session of the JEA, I thought it would be valuable to I don't know how to lower the screen, but anyway, move the screen. Oh, here we go. Okay. You see, I'm very untech savvy. There we go. I thought I would talk about some aspects of Jewish attitudes towards animals. So the first one, I think, these are somewhat surprising. I think one of the main attitudes about animals in the Bible, maybe you think of them normally as, food, but there are many other aspects. So one aspect is that animals are essentially like us. And we see this right at the beginning of Genesis, right at the beginning of the Torah. It says, God blessed them being the fish and the birds, with this saying, be fertile and increase, fill the waters of the seas and let the birds increase on the earth. Now, that the amazing thing about this verse is that just a few verses later, the same words are said pretty much verbatim about human beings, right? So there's a very strong connection between people and our commandment, so to speak, to fill the earth, to be fruitful and multiply, and the same words being said about fish and birds. I think that's very powerful, that even though normally we think of the first book of Genesis as saying human beings are so far above other creatures, when you look closely, really we're similar. And the text is showing us that we are, God treats us, with some differences and many similarities as well. And there's a remarkable Rashi that to this verse that I just had to bring that says that, quote, but because people, the reason why this command to birds and fish was given was because people decreased their number, hunting them and eating them. They needed a blessing. In other words, God foresaw that human beings would attack and eat and kill birds and fish. It's really, in the Middle Ages, this is really quite something. And therefore, they needed this blessing that would somehow protect them. So anyway, so that's one way that animals are like us. And another way they're like us is that they represent us, right? And we saw this in last week's Parsha, and the famous story of the Akedah, the binding and near slaughter of Isaac, that Abraham takes the ram and offers it as a burnt offering in place of his son. And really the whole system of sacrifices is that animals are like us. They are similar to us, and they can represent us to God, whatever one thinks of sacrifices in other terms. It shows a similarity between us and animals. The next thing I want to look at is the system of kashrut, which there's a list of animals that are kosher and that are not kosher in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. And I guess I've always had problems with this passage because it's one of the main sections where animals are discussed in the Torah. Of course, there are animals, plenty of animals mentioned in poetry and other places, but to me, animals are a lot more than food. So this bothered me, and I think I'm seeing something different in this than I did before. I always thought, oh, animals, they're for food or they're not worth talking about. But I think the language might indicate a different, something else that the Bible's trying to tell us here. So we have here any animals that has true hooves, cleft through the hooves, that chews its cud, such you may eat, but these you may not eat, right? So there's a general there are some general indications of kosher animals that are kosher, meaning fit to eat. And there's a long list of many animals that are not fit to eat. And one of the key words that's repeated over and over in Leviticus is this word sheketz, which is really a kind of a nasty term. It means it's often translated as abomination. So what is the Bible getting at here? Right. So it says with regard to creepy, crawly things on the earth, like salamanders, things like that, other wings or grasshoppers, winged swarm things that have 4 legs shall be an abomination for you. For you. I want to emphasize those words. In other words, they're something that you should stay away from, you should not eat, but not in themselves. And I think we really see that powerfully in another use of this term. It says, the following you shall abominate, again, this word as a verb, among the birds, they shall not be eaten, they are an abomination. The eagle, the vulture, and the black vulture. The reason I emphasize the eagle, this word nesher, because this is not the last word about the eagle, right? In other words, you should abominate, you should stay away, you shouldn't eat them, but the eagles, the nesher, were the ones who brought, at least metaphorically, if not literally, the children of Israel out of Egypt. Al Kanfei Nesharim, which is a famous environmental group, on the wings of eagles or whatever a nesher was. It might be something slightly different, but these are heroic, sublime creatures that were called upon or invoked to bring us out of Egypt. These are not disgusting abominations as we think about it. So I think this word abomination really shows that the attitude is that there are a few animals for us, but the rest of the animals we must respect and keep far from and not view as something for us. They are not for us, right? That eating and not eating does not in any way exhaust our relationship with animals. And I just want to end with one of my favorite texts, Jewish texts. It's called Perek Shira. It's a medieval text, and it is essentially an elaboration of Psalm 148, which talks about all these different natural forces and animals and creatures, all singing the praises of God. Praise the Lord from the heavens, praise the Lord from the heights, beasts and all cattle, crawling things and winged fowl, all kinds of creatures, just like us, sing God's praise. We are not alone. It's a mighty chorus, the combined force of nature is a mighty chorus singing God's praise. So there are 6 chapters in Perek Shira of these different forces and creatures, and they're really so delightful. And some of the praises that these animals and creatures sing are taken straight from Psalms and other books in the Bible. So I'll just read 4 of them that I selected somewhat at random. The stormy petrel is saying, light is sown for the righteous and joy for the straight-hearted. The grasshopper is saying, I lift my eyes up to the mountains, wherefrom shall come my help. The elephant is saying, how great are your works, O Lord, your thoughts are tremendously deep. The ant is saying, go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Let me stop sharing.
All right, thank you so much, Elliot. That last line, actually, the way it's kind of admonishing us. Oh, you sluggard humans! Look at the ant. It's a great comparison, and it is a really interesting book, Perek Shira, about all the animals. almost like a children's book. So Mirella says ants would be great activists. They certainly organize very well. So that was terrific. And yeah, I kind of don't know how Jews got so far away from the natural world. I guess being in cities has changed our relationship with the earth in many ways. So thank you again, Elliot. So tonight, we have with us tonight from the National Wildlife Federation, Naomi Edelson, who is the Senior Director for Wildlife Partnerships at the National Wildlife Federation, partnering with state wildlife agencies on funding wildlife survival, including the Restoring America's Wildlife Act campaign. She's an inspirational leader in wildlife conservation, who's gifted at fundraising, providing practical information, and building movements of people inspired to action. Naomi created the website Native Plant Finder and Sacred Grounds, linking faith practices and caring for the environment for all forms of religion, all houses of worship. She's a graduate of the University of Massachusetts Amherst and University of Florida, and lives in Tacoma Park, Maryland with her family. And many of you know that Tacoma Park was one of the first towns to ban nuclear materials, radioactive materials to traverse their town. And now they are working on banning fossil fuels, converting all the gas stations and getting people to get rid of their gas in their homes, and new building not having gas. So it's a radical town. It's a radical and environmental town. So welcome, Naomi. We look forward to hearing about how your day went and how the Wildlife Act is going, and what action we should be taking.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much. And thank you for having me back again. I was going to be joined by my colleague, Jill Feldhusen, but she is ended up not being available, but I'm very happy to join you. And Tacoma Park is also home to the wonderful Jamie Raskin. And it's also the first city in the country to ban cosmetic pesticides. And so we have which has now happened in the whole county, and anyway, we're trying to get it done. Some people are trying to get it done at the state level too. So it's a big deal. I see I have a lot of, oh, well, that's okay. Anyway, I'm very glad to be here. I have to say we are at a critical time. Recovering America's Wildlife Act is literally at the final phase of 20 plus years of work. And I came and applied for a job in Washington, DC, and I came here in 1991. And my job was to get a bill passed, to get money for proactive wildlife conservation and to build a coalition. And it's been a long time. It took 10 years to build a coalition, almost got a bill partly passed, and now this is the second attempt. But it actually did predate me even 30 years before. So it can take a long time to make legislation, really important legislation, happen. But I have hope for the future, and I really feel like this is the time for this bill. And so I wanted to thank you all for everything you've done so far, which has really been quite a bit, which I really appreciate. And I wanted to share with you, remind you what the bill is about, and then also share with you some of the work that has led up to this point and where we actually are, so you can help us cross the finish line. So if that's okay, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm just going to walk through some a presentation, and then I'll be happy to talk about it more. So I just did something really weird. Can you see? It looks funny, right? Hang on. I might have screwed this up. I don't know how that could have happened.
Well, we're seeing the butterfly.
There we go. Okay. So the bill is called Recovering America's Wildlife Act. It's federal legislation. And it's in place because we really just, we have lots of crises going on right now. Democracy, we have climate crisis, but we definitely have had a wildlife crisis going on for a while. And while people think of saving the elephants, like Mirla had on her head, there's a lot of wildlife right here in the US that's been very much in trouble. And in fact, we have identified thousands of species that are headed towards becoming endangered if we don't take some proactive steps. And so we consider this a rescue mission. It's really about all hands on deck. And the monarch butterfly is one of the most recent best examples. But, we didn't even know that was happening. Biologists didn't know that until all of a sudden it was like, boom, like gone, almost gone. And we're working hard to recover it. But it's like there's so many things we don't even know how species are faring, even in this rich nation full of all these biologists. It's really kind of amazing. And I am a wildlife biologist myself. So the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, its goal is very simple. It's a proactive solution that will prevent wildlife from becoming endangered in every state. And this is being done through money. Basically, it's about providing $1.39, almost $1.4 billion in dedicated annual funding, meaning Congress can't mess with it. It has to be given out to states and tribes every year. It's like a pot of money set aside only for that purpose, which is extremely unusual and extremely difficult, but will make all the difference. And on the front lines in wildlife conservation are state fish and wildlife agencies and tribal agencies. Of course, the federal agencies are very critical too, like Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA, and even Department of Defense, which has a lot of land. But these two agencies are really on the front lines. And this funding will be dramatic and a game changer and historic and any other word you want to use to describe it. The money that'll come for species that aren't hunted and fished, that's the key here. They already have a pot of money for those. There were user fees on hunting and fishing gear, but this is money that would not be, is focused on those that aren't already funded. And the amount of money is so dramatic that it would really, really change how wildlife is conserved in our country. And we are at this critical point. We've been working hard on this. We've had the bill reintroduced many times in several Congresses. Every 2 years, Congress has to reintroduce a bill. And we are at the point where, like you said, it's passed the House. We had 194 co-sponsors. We passed the bill with bipartisan support, strong bipartisan support. It passed the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. And we now have 42 co-sponsors in the Senate, and of those, 16 are Republican. We were actually at even numbers for a long time, and then they decided to just let a bunch of Democrats come on who were waiting in the wings. So we have, in the Senate, you have to get 60 votes, right, basically. And so we are very close to that, and we know there's more senators who would vote for it. But we are at the stage where we're basically waiting, which we expect this week, for a funding source, a source of money to be announced officially. And that is, they're waiting to lock in 10 to 11 Republicans so that they can go to Senator Schumer, the majority leader, and say, we have the votes, put this on the calendar and get this done this year. We're in this period where they call it the lame duck. I don't have that origin of that name. Actually, I should know it, and we're at the point where it's, you never used to be this way. Congress used to go home, but now they just come back over and over and over, and they're not often done until right up until their winter break, often even the day before Christmas. And they call that period when after election to when they end, which is December 31st. Technically, they could end as late as that. That's called the lame duck. And, it's supposed to be a time when not much happens, but it's turned into this super busy time for many, many years now. And everything that didn't get done gets crammed into this period. So we are trying to get crammed into this final phase. And we're waiting for the source of money to be announced and the senators to come out publicly and to call for a vote and say, pass Recovering America's Wildlife Act now. So that's what we're going to come back and talk about. I'm just going to show you quickly some of the work that went into this, all the activism, the creativity and the inspiration and the persistence. And that is what it takes. So today, like I said, a lot of tribes were in visiting, and they have been working on the Hill, talking to members of Congress, talking to the White House, talking to reporters, and really making the case. And they have strong support from actually Republicans and Democrats. And it's very interesting. And they're an amazing messenger. And of course, they are a beneficiary, and they're one of the people, major players in taking care of our nation's wildlife. But we've worked hard on getting a lot of support, and we have very strong diversity of support from all kinds of players. We have a sign-on letter of more than 1,800 groups and businesses like Patagonia. We have hunters and anglers. We have birders and gardeners, and it's really like the kind of coalition you don't always see to come together around a cause. And here's some young birders. And we have like the hunters and anglers have been really strong players. Nature photographers did a big letter on this to help. We have hikers and we have gardeners. And Mirla will recognize this picture. This is a project she and I work on together called Sacred Grounds. And here's a mosque which just put in native plants. And they're a new gardener to put in a beautiful pollinator garden on their property. But this bill, like I said, has been going on for a long time. There was a version back in 2000 called the Conservation Reinvestment Act. And Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who some of you may know from Michigan, has been she's in the leadership along with Jamie Raskin in the House, but it was her husband that really got the bug for this bill, and actually his father, which introduced a bill in the 50s. So it's been a legacy bill for them. And we had a big effort at the big rally a long time ago, hundreds of people and cute kids. And we flew an eagle from the balcony of the Capitol. They'll never let us do that again. When I tried to get a permit to host a rally today, they kept saying to me, "Are you bringing live wildlife? We know you like to do that. You can't do that anymore." So they kept saying that. It was really funny to me that they would remember. But we actually flew this bald eagle from the Capitol. And then we brought the big eagle into the Capitol, and we walked through the halls of Capitol, underneath, and everybody stopped us. And we got all these pictures with senators and members of Congress, and we got over like 50 visits, and they all wanted an op-ed. And you can see that was in the year 2000, a long time ago. And but then, because we couldn't bring the eagles in anymore, even though I tried, we brought in stuffed eagles. And here's a group of bipartisan members. Grijalva is over there on the far right, chair of the House Resources Committee. Congresswoman from Puerto Rico there, and a Republican congressman from North Carolina, who actually, if you look behind him, he has an eagle in his background, which is his daughter drew that. So he came out of his meeting to say hi because he saw me holding the eagle and showed me the picture that his daughter drew. And he just actually got elected as the new senator, Republican senator in North Carolina. And we then brought in monarch butterflies, and we passed around little cards that said, "Be my co-sponsor." And that's how we got more names. It was like trying to be creative and clever and get in front of people. And this member of Congress represents the southern part of California, where the monarchs are now, going to winter, not separate from Mexico, but in California. And he was so excited that he heard we were there that he came running up to meet with us and get his picture taken. It's really nice. And he was a good champion on the bill. And the tribes, we had briefings. We shared a lot of information with on the Hill about why funding for tribes was so important, and other, for wildlife. And we did Hill visits, and we took advantage of any member of Congress any which way we can. We saw them at other events and talked with them. We grabbed them in the hall and talked. This is Congressman Don Young, who since passed away, from Alaska. He's sort of the enemy of the environmental movement, but he loved this bill. He loved it. And we saw him and we talked with him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to back you again." And we sent postcards. We did a whole Beanie Baby campaign where we put Band-Aids on and said, "Band-Aid solution, it won't save America's wildlife." And we sent them to members of Congress. And then here, you did one of the more creative things this campaign. I love this picture, and I show it as much as I can. I love it. It's really great. And we came and did this actually at my synagogue at Adat Shalom too. And we held Facebook Live events in front of bat caves and brought members of Congress and showed it to hundreds of people. We have done tons of social media about it. And then we thanked the members of Congress that supported us. Here's a letter to Congresswoman Dingell with all these people at a meeting thanking her. And we did social media to thank them when they co-sponsored, really important to give love back. And we've done a bunch of personal videos where people speak about the bill to their influence, their networks. And here is Karina Newsom on my left, the birds like rose-breasted. She has 30,000 followers, and she did her own video to reach out to them to get them to contact their members of Congress. But down there below, you can see Meryl Azamai, Rabbi Fred Daub. And Senator Heinrich did his own video. And we, got a letter signed by more than 16,000 people to Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Schumer asking the vote to be held this year. And we took a picture at the Capitol to share with them. And we know people care about birds. It shows up at other people's rallies. This is a climate rally. And I'll just tell you today, we also did some things to really get the attention of Congress to say this, pass Recovering America's Wildlife Act now. We put footprints and decals at all the metro stations that are close to the hill that the staff come out of. And we have a digital billboard that's driving around, hopefully in an electric vehicle, the Capitol to say, pass Recovering America's Wildlife Act now. So we are really in this home stretch. Today we held a virtual rally. We had people make signs and ask people to, lean in for the next 4 weeks and really help us get this bill done. So that's our main message, is pass Recovering America's Wildlife Act now, meaning really this year. So thank you. And I can talk more about it, or we can go to the action.
Let's take a couple of questions. Naomi, can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm unstable here. I don't know.
I can hear you.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Naomi, so much. That was really exciting work, and just such a variety of ways that you get their attention. So it was really terrific.
Grassroots power. Let me just say that this is about grassroots power, which is what you do. We do have inside, baseball going on. We have people talking to, the senators who know each other, and people who are in the room when senators are talking and can pick them up and call. We're doing that too, but it's really this intense grassroots power of people calling constituents from their state, their district, calling and writing and tweeting and saying, we want this bill. That's what's made so much of a difference.
Yeah, it is really amazing. It's amazing how powerful the grassroots are. Every blade of grass has an angel. That's what it says in the Midrash, right? That says grow, grow. So anybody have any questions? Let's see, you can give me a raised hand, or you can put it in the chat. So if you have a question.
Amy has her hand raised.
There we go. Yeah, Amy, can you unmute? Can somebody let's see, can you unmute it?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so Naomi, thank you so much. That's very inspiring. One of the things I picked up you said is that they're trying to get a source of funding to pass the bill. Is that what the hang up is? And can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so it's called there's rules in the House and the Senate. Like if you're gonna provide a dedicated fund, like we talked about, this is what's called, they can't, like I said, Congress can't make a decision around it. Money would automatically be appropriated. And when you do that, you have to provide a source of money to pay for it, so it doesn't add to the overall budget deficit. It's called a pay for, and they can waive the rules, but like they have repeatedly. So where there's a will, there's a way. But we're not like the crisis of a flood, like a hurricane or Ukraine. We're not, wildlife crisis isn't seen that way. So our champions are working on a source of money, and they have found something which is like a financial kind of a stock issue that they're going to use. And it's not something that it's something that was originally in the Inflation in the Build Back Better bill, which you all have worked on, and they didn't get picked up and put into when the bill got shrunk, it didn't get picked up and put into the bill. So they're trying to get they're trying to work it out and get everyone to agree that that's the source of money, and it's not controversial. And I can't say more than that. I'm supposed to be quiet about it. So they're working on something, and it's really like not even a big deal. It won't be that big deal for anybody, but that's the point. It won't be a big deal. And once it's agreed to, then they can go public. And then that should bring more of the Republicans on more solidly to say, yes, I'm definitely going to vote for it. And then we're in like it should be, as long as we can get put on the calendar or added to one of the big bills, like the big funding bill, December 15th, which is most likely when that will happen. So it's our job, let me just say, to talk about the merits of the bill, why the bill is important, and keep that public pressure on it so that the bill comes to the floor, gets scheduled, and then gets voted on. That was a long answer.
Can you say, when you say they're working on it, who is the they who's working?
Oh, our champions. Sorry, I didn't talk about Senator Heinrich from New Mexico is the lead Democrat. Senator Blunt, who's in the Republican leadership, he's like number 3 and he's retiring. This is it for him. This is his legacy bill. He is working on it. Senator Tillis from North Carolina is another Republican. Senator Sinema from Arizona. They've all been and she like runs the financial services, or she's like intimately involved in that. So so they're working on it. Our champions on the Hill, senators.
Thank you.
I really liked how you had allies, all over, gardeners and fishermen and sports people and probably ecotourism kind of thing. And I was just wondering about hunters. I mean, they must, I'm not into hunting, but they must see the depletion of wildlife. And that must pain them too. Did you talk to hunting organizations at all, or?
Yes, they've been very part of this coalition from the get-go. And Ducks Unlimited, Trout Unlimited, Mule Deer Foundation, all the big national environmental groups. And there's a big caucus called the Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus, which is one of the biggest caucuses on Capitol Hill, and they've been solidly behind it. I mean, they have, they very much care about all wildlife, and also they feel a little bit like it's been unfair that they've been paying for most of the state wildlife conservation to date, and they want to have more people help pay.
Got it. And what are some of the projects that people have been doing that are successful in increasing in saving wildlife? Can you tell us a little bit about?
I mean, some of the projects that I think are the most interesting to talk about are really these reintroductions of species. And so like the Karner blue butterfly, I don't know if you remember, I showed a picture of a little blue butterfly, and it disappeared, and from a lot of the Northeast and even into Michigan and the Great Lakes region. And so they raised it in, like labs, little butterflies, which, and then they brought it, in New Hampshire, they brought it, they had to do a big burn to recreate the right habitat. They managed the land to recreate the habitat, restore the habitat, and then they put the butterflies out there. Or maybe they put the caterpillars, I'm not really sure actually, but in my mind, it was the butterflies that got released and they flew away. And that's been a huge success story in several states, New York also. And so that was a combination of getting the habitat right and then bringing the animal back in. That's also happened with wolverines in the Pacific Northwest. And even, what's another good example? There's lots of examples of species otters have been reintroduced in a lot of states, and some of them are easy and some of them are really hard. And bald eagle was also, when it was with DDT, that they literally brought eggs from Florida and Maine to like all across the country. And now the eagle has been delisted. And so it's, it's pretty sophisticated, but in some states like Arizona, there's a project where they had to like get rid of an invasive bullfrog or some kind of frog that was like taking up all the space and eating the rare other frog. And then once they got rid of the bullfrog, they got rid of them. Then they put back the other tadpoles of the frog that needed that was almost extinct. So there's a lot of examples like that. Sometimes it means replacing a culvert underneath a bridge, making it wider. They're doing a lot. The Infrastructure Act will help a lot because they might be doing it for other reasons, the flooding, but when they make the culverts bigger under the bridges and stuff, it allows more wildlife to pass under it.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of bridges built for wildlife to cross
Right.
highways.
That's true.
Elliot is asking, have you learned anything about building a rare bipartisan coalition that might be applied to other bills?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it is about, sort of basic, the answer, but it is about common ground, and respecting everybody for being there, maybe sometimes for different reasons, and sticking to your issue. I mean, we've definitely had, it hasn't been easy just because it's bipartisan and a broad-based coalition. There's been, things but you have to keep your eye on the prize. And, I think we just really worked on our messaging, and sometimes we had to ask certain groups to be quiet and let the other groups shine. Like for the Republicans, we did lean in more with hunters and anglers and let them be the voice. And that was effective, even though the Sierra Club has many more members than all of them combined, but it was who's the messenger and things like that. And we just kept being, I think the real answer is being persistent too. I mean, really, I never thought it would take this long myself. But I think, we have intentionally built the right allies. We've been very, very intentionally, not just, and also like when we were working on the Senate side, the Senator Heinrich and Senator Blunt really would not put for a long time, would not put another Democrat on the bill until they had another Republican. So they called it Noah's Ark, isn't that funny? They called it that. But I think they really wanted to, give the appearance and that this wasn't just a Democrat's bill.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And your passion shows, and your passion and persistence definitely shows. And so important to all of us, and we're really glad that we've been working on this and that it is coming to fruition right at this moment, just as we speak. So so good luck to all of us, and we're going to do an action tonight to put our stamp on it and to keep pushing it through. And I'd like to call on Judy Burlfine. Most of you know her. She's on our steering committee and is part of the Southern California Jewish Earth Alliance and the Jewish Action Team of Citizens Climate Lobby. And she's going to lead us into action tonight on the wildlife bill, as Naomi briefed us tonight on how to do it and where to go with it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Just.
And Ed, will you put up the slide with the thanks? Great. Well, thank you, Naomi. That was really great. And I live in Encinitas, Southern California, and they just re-dredged our lagoon, and we have and made the opening to the ocean wider, and we have all kinds of new thriving wildlife because of that.
Right.
So it's exciting. Okay, so we saw some of these. You can move through these, Ed. We're going to pass the recovering, and we're racing to the floor. Here's the wonderful picture. And we're going to be calling our writing tonight about the Senate Bill 2372. And here's the information, and we're going to do all this right now. And after you've done it, you can write in the chat that you were successful. So you have the option to either call your senator or submit a comment on their website. Website you can find by putting in their last name, .senate.gov. And the key message that we are conveying is to please ensure passage of Recovering America's Wildlife Act this year. this month or next month, before the close of the congressional session. The wildlife cannot wait. So everyone, go ahead and make your call or write your comment.
And what was the number of the bill again? It's not on this page, is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, can you go back? I think you could just say passage of recovering America's wildlife Act. Does Naomi, do you?
Yes, I agree. I think that's better than using the bill number actually, because they might get the bill number wrong or whatever. Saying the name of the bill is great.
Oh, shit.
Okay, so here we are. Okay, so everyone, go forth and call.
Mute up.
Yeah, and mute yourself when you're calling. We'll be quiet and put a note in the chat once you've done it.
Keep going, everybody. We're getting a lot through. We got Maryland, we got Florida. Let's see, where else? California, New York. We don't have any, our Pennsylvania people, do we? All right, are you all pretty much back? Let's see. Anybody else need more time? Raise your hand. Let's see if I get the whole gallery. No, it seems like everybody got through, huh? Terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Thank you for getting this together and alerting us. Let's see, not senators, not open. Yeah, some of them won't be open now, so you do have to write them. Oh, right, and Padilla. And
if you
Padilla.
live in a
and
house with another human being, when you hang up, ask them to do it also.
Say that again?
I said, if you live in a house with another human being, when you hang up from the meeting, ask them to do it also.
Right, exactly, yes. Okay. All right, looks good. Good turnout. Thank you all so much for doing that. They'll have a lot to look at tomorrow morning. When did Naomi said that the deadline is? December 15th, they'll be going on break? Okay, so we'll keep on top of them and let you know.
They have to pass a funding bill by December 15th. And that's when we think this bill will get attached to that. They can stay, you know, they can stay as long as they want through the 31st. But they usually wrap up by Christmas.
Right, you had mentioned that they may put it into some other bill. So one of the omnibus bill or
Yeah, omnibus, that's probably what it'll be.
right, so we'll keep everybody posted, and Mirla made a great suggestion. She's wonderful at thinking of ways to get to your families and friends at social events. So bring the newsletter blurb to Thanksgiving, and maybe even make the phone call then. That would be fun.
Use your great photos, have them bring a sign. I love that idea. I'm gonna use that idea, Mirla. Thank you.
Yeah, send a photo. Yeah, send a photo petition from Thanksgiving, and tell them that you're all eating tofurkey.
I was going to say, not with a dead turkey.
Yeah, not with no pictures with the dead turkey and no wild turkeys, right? So yeah. Have you all, if you all haven't looked at the meat they are now making in vats, it's really an interesting thing. What's it called? The Upside Meat Company. It's a whole nother world. It will be a whole nother world of food production. All right, this is really great. It's good to see you all. And Mirla, did you see any new names that are first timers here? Is anybody a first timer at the meeting? I can't tell. There are a couple of people not on video. Nope. All right. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. I'm feeling very uplifted this week. There's been some pretty good news. So at least as far as legislation is concerned. And Naomi says, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Do get your friends involved and help us pass the bill this year. So I wanted to say that this week's Torah portion is Chaya Sarah, and Abraham's servant Eliezer finds a match for Abraham's son Isaac in Rebecca. And when asked if she will go with him, she says right away, pretty much, she says, Elech, I will go. I am ready. And that is what we did together this season. We got up and got going. Elech. We made change. So mazel tov and blessings to you all. Baruch atah Adonai ruch shekol ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lirdof tzedek. Blessed are you, the spirit of the whole universe, who sanctifies us, who elevates us with mitzvot, with doing the commandments of pursuing righteousness, what is right. So let's all say amen to that.
Amen.
And
Amen.
we'll see you
Amen.
next
Amen.
month. Next month, actually, our meeting is a week early, so it doesn't run into people going away for Christmas. It's December 13th, I think it is, but usual Tuesday night. And we are working on the farm bill. So that will be coming out in the action alert for next month. All right, thank you all. Thank you, Ed, for holding down the fort on technology, and Judy for leading us into action. Thank you so much, Naomi, for being our speaker, and Elliot Rabin for being our inspiration tonight. And we'll see you all next month.